VimBiz, true integration of scheduling, rentals, and engineering. Thank you for joining us live at NAB in Las Vegas. From planning to scheduling, presented by Alain Arsenault and Stéphane Turgeon.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our VimBiz booth here in Las Vegas, live from Las Vegas. We're broadcasting all around the world right now. My name is Alain Arsenault. I've recently joined VimBiz after working in the television and broadcast and radio industry for 30 years. So I've done production, I've done script assistance, research, I've produced and directed series, events, promos, and I did a bit of editing and camera work to top it all off. So in these 30 years, I did see a lot of things, some good, some bad. And when it comes to planning a production, whether it's a series that has 20 to 30 episodes, a live broadcast of a show, sporting event, news, election night, and many more, planning and budgeting is the key that unlocks every smooth production. So in today's reality, with the lack of qualified resources, lower ad revenues, a well-planned production goes a long way, right? So it is sometimes difficult to pull in every department on board and to streamline all these efforts into a common goal. So some departments are doing planning on Excel spreadsheets and Word, some documents are shared, some aren't. Email inbox is a disaster, so it can get very messy really quickly. So what is needed is a unified, dedicated system to ensure a realistic plan to help mitigate future potential issues. In the following demonstration, my colleague will show you examples of how VimBiz can solve these challenges and more in our planning to scheduling demo. He's been with the company for over 4 years, but has 18 years of product management experience under his belt. He knows firsthand what our clients face each and every day because he's in there with the team, helping and guiding them to success. Ladies and gentlemen, from parts unknown, weighing 100, and get ready to rumble with Stéphane Turgeon.
Thanks, Alain. Thanks, everyone. And for the record, I weigh a bit more than 100 pounds, but the head alone is 50, so I'm going to be good to go. So thanks for joining us. I'll dive right in, and I know that some of you have been waiting for the presentation, so I'm really happy that you stopped by. So just to give you a bit of background before I dive into the requesting workflow point of view. So VimBiz is an integrated suite of solutions that focuses on three main areas of the media operation. You'll see the big yellow blocks, so around scheduling, rentals, and engineering. So it revolves around it. But today's session is about the whole request workflow, what we call business requirements. I may use the acronym BR, by the way, but business requirements is all about your planning for the needs of your production project. And when I say needs, could be ranging from roles, so you may need camera operators, you may need video editors, you may need production managers, technical producers, so you may need different employees or human resources, but there's also the needs that are more technical, so you may need, let's say, a 4K truck, or you may need a studio, or you could also request equipment. So you may need cameras, cables, lighting, etc. So the whole idea with business requirements is to be able to plan for those needs and ultimately know the budgeting impact or whatnot. So really today we'll focus on those yellow blocks. Okay? Before I dive into the demo, I do want to highlight that we're really proud to be implemented in 10 different countries. Most recently, the NRK group in Norway has gone live and also is using the BR module and the request workflow. There's also the group in Switzerland, SRG-SSR, who is planning on using the BR later this year as well. And just wanted to highlight the longest standing customers at Vimsoft, SVT in Sweden and DR in Denmark, have also shown some interest in using the BR module as well for requesting resources. Quick note, I've been focusing on the public broadcasters, but I do want to highlight as well maybe the name Dome Productions, which has also been using the BR module for planning for, let's say, sports events, or also quoting within the BR. And we tend to sometimes not mention it, but BR is not just about planning for those resources, but you may want to deal with outside customers or even a department where you need to submit what we call an estimate or a quote within VimBiz. So they've been using that part of the BR as well. Okay. Also wanted to highlight, last thing before I dive into the demo, but two customers that we've recently replaced, Schedule, TFO that in Canada and also La Sette in Italy have also moved over. They've used our importation tools to move the data over from Schedule to VimBiz. Alrighty, so I will now dive into VimBiz, make it interesting a little bit. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm focusing on the business requirements. And what I'll do now, I'll put the cap of the production manager or the person who will request for different resources. I have already created a business requirement with a few requirements. So let's say in my business requirement right now, I have some equipment that I've requested. So let's say the lights. I've also requested cameras, and I have an OB mobile facility that I'm requesting, and a few roles. In the end, we're not asking for specific resources, but I'm saying I need specific roles, a type of truck potentially, and some equipment. The beauty of the BR is it's not only about planning for your needs, but also budgeting. You'll see at the top right here where there's a summary that tells me what's the cost to my project. And as I'm adding these resources within the BR, this is just automatically refreshing and updating. So in the end, you have a clear view and clear visibility on the cost of the project. As I make adjustments, these values adjust, and you can even use currency and exchange rates if ever you're dealing with customers outside of the US, for example. It's not only about budgeting as well. The BR also, when we implemented this, has been evolving for the last 4 years, by the way. We've also enhanced it to help with communication or better communication within the BR. And by communication, the BR is one tool, but it really talks to all the modules within the BR. And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example a little later, but you'll see here within my BR, I have a Vim note, and I'm specifying a freelancer name. So me as a production manager, I picked up the phone and I spoke to Flavia, who's a freelancer that's going to fulfill this assistant producer role. And I'm adding a note not only for myself, but whenever I submit this request and it lands on the scheduler's I wouldn't say desk, but screen, they'll be able to view the note and even interact with me. And I'll demonstrate that a little later. But the beauty of Vim Notes is not only adding a specific note, but I can even engage with different people within the organization. So I could start different threads, I can add multiple notes, I can respond to someone's note. So it has that power, and I'll give you an example when I start doing the allocation on the scheduling side, okay? So that's the communication part. Not only communication has been enhanced within the BR, but we have the concept of permissions as well. Obviously, I'm only scratching the surface here, but I'm defining the key elements of the BR. But the idea with permissions is that, yes, you're a requester, but you may work with a team that's going to collaborate and really help define what those requirements are. Key example, let's say I'm producing or planning on producing, and I am going to hire a technical producer maybe 2 weeks before this event, and I would like for the technical producer to see the requirements and maybe collaborate or let me know if they need anything extra for that for the production. Another example could be me as a production manager. Sure, I know that I need cameras and the basics, but maybe I would want an equipment manager to also go in here and help me out to define what those key requirements are. So without going to all the details of the BR, excuse me, I will submit the BR, and the idea is, and the power of VimBiz is that full integration. As I'm submitting this business requirement, it's actually creating scheduling events, and automatically the schedulers, as soon as they refresh their form, they'll see that there's now requirements I need to fulfill, and I need to assign this to employees, and I'll show you this in a little bit. And the same idea for equipment. So the equipment logistics team will actually receive what we call a rental request. So now that that's been submitted, now the logistics team will know that, oh, there's equipment that I need to fulfill on this request. The other thing I did want to mention, you saw the simplified version where I submitted and immediately it created events, but if within your company there's a need to maybe authorize a request, so maybe there's a manager at the department that they need to authorize the request before the scheduling team is notified, we can configure a VimBiz to do that. So it's just a setting that you turn on and it enables authorization workflows. So I'm just going to close this for one moment. Now I'm moving over, me talking about the hat, so now I'm removing the production manager hat, and I'm now wearing the scheduler hat, and I'm going to go to what we call the business request allocation form. So this is tailored for scheduling, and the main objective of this form is it provides visibility on requirements that need to be allocated to real resources. So in my example, I know I selected the date. I'm going to pick my project that I've been working on just to filter the noise. So I'm just going to select my ROI project, and I'm going to refresh. Okay, so we can see that we submitted the BR, and I'll increase this a little bit. So in my request, I was asking for that OB mobile, if you remember. And in VimBiz, we have a standard thing within our scheduling forms that when you see yellow, not that it's a bad thing, but it means that there's a requirement that's not fulfilled or resolved yet. So that means someone's requesting a facility, and now I need to allocate it. Within VimBiz, because we have data attached to facilities and employees, VimBiz will actually recommend resources when I refresh. So as I selected these 4 events, if I hit F5, it actually tells me, okay, based on the type of facility you've requested, I know which ones are available, and I'm going to list them out. So in my example, before I actually allocate them, I'm going to open this facility. And the reason why I'm doing this is not to give you too much detail, but it's just to illustrate that when I configure a facility within VimBiz, I can give it details, obviously, but the key part I wanted to show is that within a facility, so a truck or a studio, I'm able to identify specific equipment that is found in that truck. Now, reason why I'm explaining this is because in my BR, if I rewind a little bit, and I request equipment and a facility. Well, if I need equipment and that equipment is sitting in a truck or in a studio, I shouldn't be bugging the equipment logistics team to pull stuff off the warehouse shelves. So in the end, whenever I assign a facility, and I'll show you in a little bit, when I go to the rental request a little later, I can actually leverage these assets and actually book them. Okay, so I'm going to assign these 4 events. All right, that is now assigned. So again, me with my hat changing, so now removing the scheduler's hat, wearing the equipment manager's hat, and I'm going to now move over to the rental module. And you'll see that we have a form called Manage Rental Requests. And I'm just going to move over and open my rental request. So now going and following my story, I first planned for my requirements, I submitted it, and now I'm sharing it with the scheduling team what I need. And I also now am going through the equipment part. So you'll see when I click on the Facility Assigned Product Type tab, I had requested lights in my BR, and I also asked for a camera. But now that the facility is assigned, you'll see that there are available items on the facility. You'll see here that I have 3 on my facility available column. So that means I can really leverage what's on the truck, and I just click on the assigned facility items, and I keep referring to truck because that's what I used, but it could be a studio as well, okay? So by clicking Assign Facility Items, you'll see that automatically it resolved this requirement, and it used what was on the truck, and now what's left is the lighting equipment. So then that means that at this point, I would then send that off officially to the warehouse team to fulfill that requirement and assign equipment. I won't bug you with rentals. That's my friend Tom that's going to handle that a little later today in another demo session. Okay, so now we fulfilled that part of the facility assignment. I'm just going to move over now to the employee events, which is really where we're doing the assignments for the various role requirements. Same form, so business request allocation. I'm just going to focus on what's on the project. And again, I was using the standard earlier around yellow. So yellow stands for these are virtual requirements. I need to fulfill and resolve these requirements. And you'll see that same idea. I can select these events, and then I can hit F5, and VimBiz knows that, oh, you've requested a camera operator. Okay, well, I know in VimBiz which employees can fulfill that role, so I can ultimately just move over those events, and I can assign them to an employee. The other part I wanted to mention before I do that assignment is I want to make sure that I can configure my employee properly, and I can define which roles the employee can fulfill and also skills. Again, all these details, you don't have to configure them. It's just available to you, and the more you configure, it's better for you, and VimBiz can assist you with your planning. So in this case, for Christina Gomez, you'll see that she can fulfill multiple roles within the company, but she also has skills, and skills can do many things. She may be able to speak French and English, for example. She may also be able to handle a drone camera as well. So in the end, those items that I'm configuring on Christina will really help VimBiz recommend who can fulfill those requirements. So in my case, what I've done is I've selected those events, and now I'm going to assign this to Christina. So now I've assigned the events to Christina, and the reason why I'm sort of fulfilling some of these items is to show you that right now I've been wearing those multiple hats, but what we've been hearing from our customers is me as a production manager, I shouldn't have to worry to go to scheduling to make sure my requirements are fulfilled, and I shouldn't have to go in the rentals to make sure that everything's fulfilled, because that's not necessarily my job to look at those areas. Don't get me wrong, you can definitely look, but in the BR, that's where I live. I'm the requester, I manage sort of that entirety of the project, so I really want to have proper visibility on my requirements. And I'll show you what that means. Now that those requirements have been assigned, I can now go back to my business requirement, and we'll have a look at how those requirements have been resolved. So as I open this, you'll notice that before, I didn't necessarily have these check marks that were identifying what's been resolved. And if we, again, go through that story I've been going through, now that the facility was assigned, you'll see that there's a green check mark. So that means people have actually been doing their job, and now this has been fulfilled. The other part you notice is one of my camera operators, I assigned it to Christina, which means part of it, and then you'll notice the coloring gray part. So gray stands that it just means that part of the requirement's been fulfilled, but not the entire thing. So I know people are actually working on it, or actively working on it, I should say. One thing that's very powerful within VimBiz, I've been giving you the workflow of I requested something and I sent that over to scheduling. But we know that the real world, in the broadcasting or media world, things keep changing, keep evolving. So once you send a request over, you may realize, shoot, I asked for a resource to start at 8 a.m., but you know what? I think I need to move that by a few hours. Or even worse, we need to move the whole production over maybe by a month or a few weeks. So instead of having to call the schedulers to say, hey, can you push it out by a month? You can simply adjust the business requirement, and then that updates the scheduling team of those changes. In the end, I can also make these adjustments in bulk. So without going into too much detail, I can essentially select multiple days, and I can decide to change those dates, and I could maybe decide to do a bulk change or move the dates around. So in the end, VimBiz just allows you to move things, be efficient, and in the end, work in one area that gives you that nice visibility on your requirements. Another part that I did not mention, so I've been talking about if ever the request needs to change, I'm going to communicate that over to the scheduling and the rental request. But in the end, there's visibility to schedulers. So if this request changes, the schedulers will not only be notified via email, but there's also indicators that start showing up that, let's say, a scheduled event needs to be moved by a certain duration or maybe to a different date. Now, I've been working with a project that has, let's say, requirements already predefined, but I just wanted to show you that there's an additional tool in VimBiz for the BR that we allow you to template things. So let's say that you have been planning on a 4-day production, 5-day, or even a month, and you realize, you know what, like we're gonna produce this every year, or every week, or every month, and I don't want to have to redo this again. So we have tools within the BR module that you can either copy them, but you can also template them. And I'll just give you a quick example of what templating looks like within the BR. So I'm just going to create a new BR. There we go, and I'm going to call this maybe a studio 5-day production. I'll try to use this simple enough. I'll move this over to from April to May 3rd. I'm going to add my dates to my BR, and then I'll move over. So this is blank. There's nothing in this request, I should say, other than me. I started defining my dates. And with the use of a template we have in VimBiz, this has been added in the last few years, I'll have to name the NRK group, but they love that option where they can use these single-day templates. So in terms of the templates, if I click on the single day template option, I can now pick what we call the Studio Production 1 day template that I've saved, I can use. And when I save this, VimBiz takes those requirements and pulls it into the request and maps it to every single day within my BR. Excuse me. So you'll see that by applying a template, it just immediately added those requirements to the list. And not only that, if I go into more detail, I know I've been talking about BR being simple and you can ask for your requirements and submit them, but you can be as detailed as you need to be. So we have some customers in the BR that will end up just defining the requirements, submit it, and they let the scheduling team handle it. But there's actually some of our customers that do very detailed planning to the level of saying exactly what time everything starts, for how long, the meals that they want to define. And you'll see here when I opened up the bookings view, you can actually see that all these roles that I've defined, I've actually planned for meals as well. So there's a meal here from 12 to 1300. So in the end, if you want to go to that level, you can definitely define those details, and then ultimately you've done some of the scheduler's work by defining those elements in the BR. I've been talking about the financials a little bit, but I also mentioned that there's the concept of producing quotes within your request. So if you needed to maybe email a report to a manager, or even if you're creating this request so that you're going to charge an outside customer for it, you'll have the ability to produce a quote as well, which will work on those financials. If you also need to change the finance, again, I'm not going to dive into all the detail, but if you wanted to change financial information, so a good example would be maybe you don't know yet what you'll be charged to hire the freelancer, but when you pick up the phone and you identify who's going to do it, you may know the cost and need to adjust the numbers. Well, if you go to the finance portion of the BR, you can actually change cost and price information for those items. So it really gives you that flexibility to adjust what you need. Okay, so this is an example of the BR. One other component that some of you may be interested in is cost tracking. So the BR is about planning your requirements, but as you submit the BR and the scheduling team starts to assign those elements, well, we have in VimBiz also the time card concept. So that means you've assigned the resources or the requirements to a resource, and then the employee, when they fulfill or actually do the work, they may need to change the time, and let's say they worked an extra 2 hours. Well, that has a cost to the project. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is within the BR, we have the ability, and I'm just going to move over a little bit to my project, and I'm going to search for ROI, and you'll understand what I'm referring to. If I open the project, I can now pull up reports or data that tells me how the project has been handled throughout the phases. And here's an example. So normally when you'll start the project, well, you're going to essentially do some planning, but then when you start scheduling, it's getting a little more precise now because you're actually assigning real resources, and ultimately when the time cards end up being submitted, well, you know the actual cost to the project. And this is what the project, and obviously you'll see that I've been doing poor planning here, but as I can dive into the project, I can know, okay, well, here's what the facilities cost me, or my studios, my trucks, the human resources, the costs of it, and also the equipment. You can, and then do some travel planning as well. So it's a robust tool that offers all the details that you need. And it's okay to take pictures because these financials are not real. But in the end, it gives you that ability to be able to pull the financials on the project. So that is the business requirement. And the main idea as well is we have various tools within the BR. I was talking about, okay, you can open up a BR and you can know which items are resolved. So the assignments, the employees that have been assigned. But we also have the ability, or let's say I'll call it more of a bird's eye view. If I look at my list of items, I can easily know the business requirements that have been fully resolved. So as soon as all the requirements, facilities, the equipment, the employees have been assigned, VimBiz will actually set up or update the status of your BR to mark it as resolved. So really you don't have to go check every BR, but you have that visibility on all your projects and all your requirements. I've been doing a lot of talking, but I just wanted to make sure if there's any questions in the room around the BR. Could be maybe very BR specific or maybe outside of the BR. I'm not sure if there's any questions or comments? I'm seeing nodding. Yes, sir?
Does it have the ability to produce a dashboard that can be shared setting plans with something scheduled like a room,
Yeah.
or maybe what the month schedule looks like?
Yeah, so I'd say dashboard per se, I guess we have to define it. So definitely we have customers that use what we call heads-up displays. So let's say if the team focuses on rentals, you can basically have the rentals form on view. And even visiting some of the customers, they'll sometimes have a huge monitor and they'll have VimBiz open with that form, basically the main focus. So there's a heads-up display for rentals, and there's the same for scheduling. Some teams will basically list out the scheduling and they have visibility on, let's say, a project or the next week. We have different forms to display that data, and I'm just going to show you maybe quick one of them. But in the end, if I focus, let's say, on teams, and I know that I'm landing maybe a little more on the scheduling side, but I can ultimately see what the schedule looks like for the following week or the following month. And I haven't shown like other forms, but there's an example of like this form being the team scheduler, which gives you sort of a shift view of everyone that's working on a given team, and the hours that they'll be working. This is one example of a view that you can list out, but just to show you a little bit more on the resource scheduler. And I'm not sure if I repeated your question, but for those online, the gentleman here was asking if there's any dashboard heads-up type of view that you can sort of monitor throughout the day or throughout the week, these requirements. So if I look at, and I'll just give you an example, I could focus this view on, let's say, a specific project. So this could be listed so you see all the requirements or all the resources in one view. Excuse me. But you could also use different views. So maybe your team focuses more on facilities. So you could have a group of all your editing suites and you can have that displayed. The other part that I know the production managers will tend to sort of live and die by is really the managed projects area, where they can, if they focus on a given project, I'm just going to look up again my ROI project. I had opened this earlier to access my snapshot, but this is really where everything around the project is listed. So any open rentals, all the scheduling events, if there's any requests that are open, even purchase orders that have been created for specific equipment. So this gives you the details. There's also the concept of, and I'm hopefully you're gonna say, yes, you answered my question, but we also have the concept of the gauges on the homepage. So whenever you log in, you can know that how many BRs have been submitted or the requirements that require review. So you can also use these gauges on the homepage. Did I answer the question? Okay, good, good. I want to make sure I'm not political about it and I answered the question. Good. Anything else? Good question. If you have a touch screen, if you can actually touch it, it should work. In the end, it's like any other application within the on the computer. I did want to specify quick, and I'm adding a little more details here. But this right now we're demoing VimBiz Rich, which is the equivalent, let's say, to installing the software on the PC, which has all the features enabled. But you can also use it on web as well, and you can also use it on mobile. So technically, if you have a touch, I know some laptops have it, or even a tablet. If you were to tablet, obviously you wouldn't have VimBiz Rich, but definitely touching the screen would open up the menus or whatnot. Yep. Correct. So if you would use, let's say, web, and I'm going to add a little more detail, but on web, you'd be able, let's say, to access some of the scheduling reports, scheduling details. If you deal with equipment, you'd be able to see any requests that have been open, and even the mobile application actually will give you some of that visibility on the like the requests that have been in, or even if you wanted to put in a request for equipment using the mobile device. So for sure, you can use Chrome, Edge, Firefox, whatever the browser you wish to use. Thank you for the question. Anything else? Not putting any pressure for questions. All righty. Thank you very much, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining. Also online. Thank you. Bye.